I'm going to start by pointing out some of the symbolism in this movie, then at the end I'll piece it all together and let you know how the religious subplot ties into the surface level story about the author and his wife. Let me start off by saying that different audiences are going to have different interpretations of this movie. This is just my interpretation, so if your view on the movie isn't the same as mine, then screw you, idiot! So with that all out of the way, I see this movie as a representation of the Exodus. Long story short, back in the day, the Israelites were enslaved by the Pharaoh in Egypt. There was this dude named Moses. God hits him up and says he's gonna have to drop these plagues on the Egyptians to force them to let his people go. There were 10 plagues in all. These events are the basis for the Jewish holiday, Passover. Each of these 10 plagues are represented in Darren Aronofsky's film. The first plague was the plague of blood. In the Exodus, all of the water in Egypt is turned into blood. In Mother, the two brothers barge into the house and start arguing about their father's will. This leads to a physical fight resulting in death. The living room, or in this case the dying room, is covered in a pool of blood, and no matter what Jennifer Lawrence does, she can't get the blood to fully go away, much like another horror movie that came out this year. The blood seeps down into the cellar and follows this path along the wall, which shows us that this isn't just a regular leak, there is something of a divine interference. This part may or may not be related, but when the water in Egypt was turned into blood, the Egyptians suffered from terrible thirst. When Ed Harris gets to the house, Jennifer Lawrence offers him some tea. She gets back from making it to find that they've already broken into a flask of alcohol, not to mention Michelle Pfeiffer's crazy obsession with making lemonade. So this could mirror the thirst of the Egyptians. The basement is the setting for the appearance of several of the plagues. I also like the idea of the blood being something that's literally sent from above, and in the Exodus, the Egyptians tried digging into the ground to find water, only to find more blood, similar to how Jennifer goes underground in the basement and finds more blood there as well. It's also worth noting that Moses makes the blood first appear by striking the Nile River with a wooden staff, and the blood in Mother appears after the brother strikes his sibling with a wooden chair. The second plague is frogs. The Egyptians' houses were invaded by these swarms of frogs. Right after she goes into the basement to follow the blood, there's this wall that she breaks away and it leads her to a secret area where she finds a frog living in her basement. It wasn't a swarm of frogs, but it's more of just a subtle reference. Plus, where there's one amphibian, there are usually more to be found. The only plague that I'm not entirely sure about is the third one, which is lice/bugs. It's likely that this plague is represented somewhere in the movie considering that the other 9 are accounted for, but I wasn't really looking out for it when I was watching this for the first time. If you have any ideas about this one, let me know in the comments. I'd love to fill in that missing piece. But anyway, the fourth plague is accounted for. When Javier Bardem offers to hold the wake for the deceased son of Ed Harris, the house is overrun seemingly by tons of random guests, and these guests represent the horde of wild beasts. In the Exodus passage, the beasts are described as wild animals that rove all over the country and destroy everything that they have built. Our two main characters have spent their marriage renovating this house together, and these people literally roam in hordes to destroy what they have built together. The fifth plague involved a disease that killed all of the Egyptians' livestock. Jennifer and Javier aren't shown to have any livestock, but there is a scene in the kitchen where she sees a dying bee keel over and pass away. This is the most relevant modern world example to diseased livestock. Beekeeping is an industry where colonies are maintained by man in order to collect and sell the natural products the bee produces, one that has been threatened in recent years by a mysterious disease killing up to 50% of bees. In this case, the bees represent the livestock of the beekeepers, and the colony collapse disorder is a modern-day plague against them. The sixth plague was boils, which manifest the first night that Ed Harris stays over at the house. He gets sick, and Jennifer Lawrence hears him coughing as she's trying to get to sleep. She gets up to see if everything's alright and finds her husband tending to him. He's coughing and vomiting over the toilet, and he seems to be covered in painful-looking boils. When she asks him about it the next day, he claims to be fine. In addition to that, here's the actual quote from the Exodus passage.
"Take handfuls of soot from a furnace and have Moses toss it into the air in the presence of Pharaoh. It will become fine dust over the whole land of Egypt, and festering boils will break out on men and animals throughout the land."
The movie has a strong emphasis on the furnace in the basement. At first, I thought it was a throwback to the refrigerator in Aronofsky's 2000 film Requiem for a Dream, just because of the fact that it's a large appliance that makes noises that scare her, and at that point in the film it seemed like it was possibly a hallucination. However, looking back on it, there may have been a deeper significance. Later in the movie, we actually see the furnace suit stuff being plastered on Javier Bardem's followers. The seventh plague is a thunderstorm of hail. Again, this isn't represented with a literal hailstorm, but rather a scaled-down representation. This comes up during the wake scene, and despite Jennifer Lawrence's constant requests, people keep sitting on her sink countertop, which has not yet been reinforced. Eventually, the counter snaps, the pipe breaks, and a storm of water sprays up and begins flooding the house, creating complete chaos. Jennifer Lawrence even refers to the mess created by these people as an apocalypse, a reference to the apocalyptic conditions of the aforementioned hailstorm. No, not that hailstorm. Moving right along to Plague 8, we have the locusts. After the thunderstorm, God's message for Pharaoh was this:
If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country tomorrow. They will cover the face of the ground so that it cannot be seen. They will devour what little you have left after the hail. They will fill your house and those of all your officials and all of the Egyptians.
I see the representation of the locusts and mother to be the fans of Javier Bardem. They invade the house, literally to the point that the floor cannot be seen. They devour all of the food, including the meal that Jennifer Lawrence had just prepared, ripping the house apart to get a piece of their hero's life. That situation continues to devolve until there's a full-on war taking place in the house, complete with soldiers and riot police. It is at this point that Jennifer Lawrence is temporarily blinded. She gets sprayed in the face with pepper spray. Enter Plague number 9, Darkness. And of course, all of this culminates with the 10th and final plague, Death of the Firstborn. Jennifer Lawrence finally delivers her baby. Javier Bardem gives it to the people. Their careless actions lead to the baby's neck snapping. Now that I've identified the 10 plagues, or at least 9 of the 10, I'll let the director, Darren Aronofsky, explain the roles of the characters and their relationships to the religious figures.
Using to tell the story of humanity, the stories of the Bible. So Ed and Michelle are the first man and woman, and these are the sons.
You're not even listening to me!
No, I just want to support both of you.
Support me? You just want to tell me what I can and can't.
And you can probably then figure out who Javier is from that last shot.
So with all of that in mind, let's take a look back at the scene in the study. When Ed Harris first sees the I'm just gonna call it the shiny object, he is captivated by it. He feels the need to hold it, to touch it. But Javier tells him that the shiny object is very precious to him and forbids him from touching it, going so far as to say no guests will be allowed in the study while he is not in there. The shiny object is our metaphorical apple of Eden, but Ed and Michelle, being the Adam and Eve that they are, go in there anyways and break it. And then God is pretty upset and he forever bans them from the Garden of Eden by boarding it off with a hammer and nails. They retreat to their room, and the next time we see them, they're doing it. Next thing you know, they have kids who show up at the house, Cain and Abel. Cain is the older brother, thought to be the originator of all things evil and violent, so shout out to him. He slays his younger brother Abel, and the family proceeds to grieve, and it's during this time that they turn to God/Javier Bardem, who gives them a speech at the wake that offers them hope. This leads to him gaining a huge following, and these people become his worshippers. He writes a holy scripture, aka his book. However, some of them are led astray and worship a false idol, which we see when the people are worshiping a photo or his possessions rather than the real thing. That's kind of where the 10 plagues thing comes in. The Egyptians worship the pharaoh, a false god, while the Jews worship their one and only God. The Jewish people escape Egypt and are promised the Holy Land of Israel by God, but there are also the Palestinians who also claim the divine right to that land. So a huge fight breaks out, which we see in the movie, starting as the followers of Javier arguing over who gets to be in the house, which eventually becomes who gets his possessions and continues to devolve into a full-blown war zone, representative of the ongoing Israeli-Palestine conflict. Finally, Jennifer has the baby, and all of Javier's followers are waiting outside to see the newborn. You could look at this as the birth of Christianity, with the baby being Jesus and dying for the people's sins, or you could examine Jennifer's actions, sheltering the baby for many days and nights, asking Javier, the pharaoh, the false god, to make those people go before he holds the child. Very similar to Moses asking Pharaoh to let my people go, and also aligning with the horror story of the Israelites escaping from Egypt and wandering the desert for 40 years to let the generation that was tainted by Pharaoh die off, so that a new, pure generation could enter the promised land. The new iteration of the cycle could represent a new beginning in that promised land, or it could represent the opening of a new book, the New Testament. It all depends how you look at it, and I think that's the point. As with real life, there are different people with different beliefs, and this is the cause for different religions. That's my interpretation of the subtext, but what does that have to do with the surface level story? The one about a writer and his wife trying to have a baby. I think Aronofsky is comparing our current celebrity-crazed culture to the worship of false idols. When Ed Harris gets to the house, he poses as a doctor who has lost his way looking for a place to stay. Jennifer later finds a picture of her husband in the man's bag from the About Me section of one of his books. The man confesses to being a superfan who came out just to see Javier before he passes away. Javier says that it's nice to have someone who appreciates his writing, to which Jennifer responds, "I love your work." This creates the divide between someone who loves him for who he is and someone who worships the idea of him, his celebrity persona. Ed becomes so enthralled by his idol that he brings his wife along to meet him. After the unfortunate passing of the man's son, Javier offers hospitality and words of wisdom in front of a large group of people, and his cult following grows. After releasing his next scripture, he has fans waiting outside his house to meet him, and before long that turns into breaking into his house, people fighting over him, tossing all of their morals for a chance to meet him. Aronofsky is commenting on how modern obsession with celebrities has become like a religious craze. People worship these celebrities, and look at the damage that it causes. As far as I noticed, not one of the characters in the movie is given an actual name, so we have to refer to them using the name of the actor, as I have throughout this entire video. This practice feeds into the whole idolization of celebrities. People are so obsessed with these actors that they ignore everything else. Have you ever referred to a movie character in conversation, not been able to remember the name, and said something like, "Oh, the Jennifer Lawrence character"? By not giving any of his characters names, this is exactly the behavior that Aronofsky is trying to highlight. Look up Mother on Google right now. You'll notice several articles referring to the movie as Jennifer Lawrence's new movie Mother. As you know by now, the film was directed by Darren Aronofsky, not Jennifer Lawrence. But speaking of Jennifer Lawrence, what an ideal candidate for a movie about the damage caused by the obsession of celebrities. A few years ago, she had her iCloud hacked and nude photos leaked to the internet in an incident known as the Fappening. To be entirely transparent though, she may have just been casted because she's sleeping with the director. Literally, she is. By the way, if this video helped you appreciate the movie a little bit more, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you are a fan of psychological horrors, go ahead and check out this nightmare horror story video that I wrote. And if you missed yesterday's Dead stream, here's a link to that as well. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.